Hello Fun Army! Welcome back to Life Under the Saga Skulls. Today I'm going on an adventure with Jay and Laurie. So we are going to... I was going to be all prepared with the official title and I'm not. It's basically an immersive experience around the Gunpowder Plot. It takes place in the Tower Vaults underneath the Tower of London, and they've created, hilariously, you know, a restaurant and some bars and all kinds of fun things like that, but it's across 2 whole floors, and it's part virtual reality experience and part theatrical experience. Now, a couple of years ago we did another one of these built by the same company. What was that around? War of the Worlds. That was around War of the Worlds, and we really enjoyed that. So we're not sure if this is going to be along the same lines or if it's going to be a bit more interactive. Like, it's hard to tell from the blurb. Like, the blurb is really excitable. It's gotten really good reviews from the media. All their like hype reels are really hypey. So we're intrigued to see whether it's just going to be similar sort of great experience or whether they've done something else to up level it. They've also hired in Tom Felton of Harry Potter fame to play Guy Fawkes. So I imagine he's going to be in quite a lot of the VR footage that we will see. So yeah, we want to take you along on the journey. Obviously, we're not going to be able to take you inside. So what I will do is show you the area, show you what I can of the venue, and then we'll do a review on the other side to let you know what we thought. So without further ado, let's get going. Do it now.
It's gone. The minute's gone.
Guido, no! And this is London on Safari. Jay, what did we just see? Tally-ho!
Tally-ho!
Tally-ho! We're so going to find some tally-ho experiences and go on those because amazing. Oh, she got a Ribena. Was it a chilled Ribena? Yes! Chilled Ribena's the best! Those are the BP entry gates where they then know everything you're doing ever, according to Jay, so let's see. And now we leave. And I'm back. So, thoughts on dramatic pause. The Gunpowder Plot. So this was pretty cool. Actually, no, I'll come back to this. Let's talk about the whole thing. So, we were very pleased, bearing in mind, as I said, that this is done by the same people who did the War of the Worlds experience. There were 1 or 2 things there that we were hoping they were going to have learned from, which they did. And we were also hoping it wasn't going to be like a carbon copy reskinning affair, which it also wasn't, which is great. Although they did kind of use a couple of the key features that they had with the War of the Worlds experience, like there's a boat section, and there are different ways in which they used the virtual reality, which were quite similar. But one of the things we did think was great, actually, was with War of the Worlds, they had various moments where you had the VR headset on and you were actually walking around a room. And we'd experienced quite a few issues with the tech at that point. And actually, I had the same, not exactly the same, but I had a difficult experience with the VR again this time, which is that you're trying to put the headset on in a hurry, they're very heavy, and actually to get a really good view of the VR, you would need to spend a bit more time kind of adjusting and tweaking the headset, and you just don't have time to do that. So, and also, you know, in a scenario like that, I'm generally wearing my glasses, and these are not well designed to go around glasses, so I played about with, do I have my glasses on, do I have my glasses off? But I had the same issue either way, which was that the headset was so heavy and I didn't really have the right amount of time to adjust it. And I wasn't even sure, like this was the thing, I wasn't even sure, even if I did have the time to adjust it, whether I would still have the same problem, which was because it's so heavy, and I actually, contrary to popular belief, I do have quite a small head. So it sort of was falling down quite a bit, so I didn't necessarily get the VR vision where it's supposed to be, so I had to like prop my fingers up under, because you're not supposed to touch it in certain places. So the places you're allowed to touch it are like underneath or on the like the headband bit. So I sort of basically had to spend most of my time propping it up underneath. So as you can imagine, for War of the Worlds, where we were walking around quite a bit with the headset on, that was really difficult because you're trying not to bump into other humans, but also stay close to your own group of humans. And then you're trying to like prop the goggles up at the same time. And at that point I was wearing my glasses underneath as well. So it was all a bit much. Whereas we think they've learnt from that, because this time there were moments where you might sort of turn your head or turn your body around a little bit, or maybe take a step in one direction or another, but you weren't wandering around with it. You sort of had something static to hold on to or to sit on or to touch each time. And yeah, it was a lot easier to work with. Although Jay was saying that there were a couple of moments where actually it was almost a bit like his video was not out of sync. What's the word? Calibrated. That's the word I was looking for. Yes. Yeah, certainly I think actually he had a couple of calibration issues where it just, the visual he had wasn't quite sitting in the right place. But what I think was really good with this one, like I've jumped straight in on the tech because that was sort of the, I guess, the easier comparison between the War of the Worlds experience and this one. But if we take this one in and of itself for a moment, it almost didn't need the VR. Like, it, you know, some of the virtual scapes they had built out were beautiful. So, for example, when you're in the boat, I'm not giving anything away here, you're on the Thames, so you're getting a full view this way and this way of what's around you on the river. So that was really beautiful. There were also a couple of moments that were almost a bit dreamscape-like, and you're like flying through that in the VR. So it just kind of, it enhanced the experience, I would say. Whereas really, what was at the heart of this experience was a really great just theatrical immersion, which, you know, I love the theatre, so I'm all for that, and for giving these amazing creative humans beautiful jobs like this to do, where they get to really interact with their audience. And I was not really familiar with the writer of this, but Laurie was actually. She's, I think it's his podcast that she listens to on her runs. But yeah, like some really well-written pieces. Some pieces that I might have laughed at if we were in the theatre, because it was a little bit like soliloquy-tastic. But, you know, it really brought, I guess, a bit more humanity to a story that, you know, most of us have heard a lot. if you've grown up in the UK, but you've sort of heard more of a one-sided view of, whereas what was really nice about this was that they were really looking at both sides of this story and were ultimately leaving it up to you as the person experiencing it to decide, not like who you felt was right and who you felt was wrong, but almost just to make your own mind up about the evidence that was presented to you. Now, you know, some of that was obviously fictionalized, and they had a really nice section at the end where they talked you through what was, you know, direct fact, what was supposition, and what they'd maybe embellished to make the story work in the right kind of way for this sort of experience. But yeah, like, it was really immersive, it was really good. I would say probably the first half was better than the second half. So, not to keep comparing it to War of the Worlds, but this had an interval, as did War of the Worlds. I'd completely forgotten about the War of the Worlds interview. It was only interval. It was only that Jay and Laurie reminded me about it yesterday, because at that point, like, we didn't know there was going to be an interval, and you just randomly stop in the middle of your experience in this random. It was kind of like a jungle bar for War of the Worlds, and we were like, what are we doing here? What's happening? But actually it worked really well with this one because they kept it as immersive as possible. So you're sort of led in as part of the story and led out as part of the story. You do lose it a little bit when you actually decide you want to go to the loo, because the minute you open the door to go to the loo, you're like, oh, this is a bit modern for a latrine. But, you know, let's be thankful for that, because nobody really wants to be going to an old-timey latrine right now, nor does anyone want the smell. So, yes, without then, I guess, giving any particular spoilers, I mean, obviously, especially if you're from the UK, you will be familiar with the story, but you are ultimately part of a group of around 16 people. I think 16 is the maximum. And you all have an individual time slot. We were really impressed that they were running on time. Ours was fairly early in the day, and when I say early, I mean 1 o'clock, which doesn't sound early in the day, but I don't think they start the sessions until about 11 or so. And then the groups go into the experience every 10 minutes. So you have your set time slot. We went in exactly on time, and by the time we'd also gone through the shop, that was a win. There wasn't really a shop at the last one. Yeah, we'd been in there about 2 hours, which was about, you know, the right amount of time, and, you know, that included the loo stop in the middle. Win. So yes, so you're ushered straight into this experience, and you're immersed right away. It takes a little bit of a while to figure out what's happening, but the sets are incredible, although Laurie and I were laughing in a somewhat pained way because, and again, by nature of the kind of experience they were creating, there was lots of like dripping water, running water, dripping sounds. So we really needed that interval stop when we got it, even though we had done the prerequisite final wee before we went in. It was just one of those things, when you hear a lot of dripping and running water, you just need the loo again. So yeah, but yeah, you're thrown right into it. You are given as a group a sense of characterization, so you know where you stand within this, and your interaction with the actors then, you know, they are asking you collective questions, and obviously they do that thing where they might ask 1 or 2 people their name and give them like a little task or something, but it wasn't too intense, like it wasn't that interactive. It was more, you know, immersive is the word rather than interactive from that perspective. And then a little way along, I again don't think this is a spoiler, but we got to put on cloaks, so we wore cloaks the whole way around. Although massive hilarity, we're all going like, oh, we're wearing these black cloaks. And then when we got into the interval section and went to the loo, where obviously, you know, because again, like immersive, the lighting was very dark, so that, you know, you couldn't see anything very well most of the time. And then, yeah, we went to the loo and the lighting was full, and you're like, oh, this cape is brown. So we really missed out on a lot of Star Wars puns that could have been had. But either way, wearing a cape/cloak is fun. Yes, so that was good. So yeah, we sort of, you just go through this warren of different rooms and tunnels and various things are happening. And you meet different people in every room. You also then have continuity with some people leading you for a few rooms or appearing and then coming back a bit later. As was the nature of what was going on at the time. You don't know who's on what side or who might be a double agent, so that was a bit fun. And in classic fashion, you don't always see where the actors are and they just suddenly appear out of the shadows and you're like, shit. So that's always good. Yeah, I did grab Laurie several times. I think at least once, quite painfully. Sorry, Laurie, didn't mean to. I think she's used to it though. They make you sign this waiver before you go in, and they, you know, quite fairly say, you know, it's not really suitable for people who are claustrophobic, scared of the dark, frightened easily. And we were just reading these things off and we're like, yeah, the claustrophobia one was interesting because, yeah, we've done some of these sort of things before where you might have to crawl under something, and there wasn't any of that. You were either standing or seated the whole time. But yes, there was a moment where you did have to go into a small space standing. But yes, I had to hold Laurie's hand the whole time because, yeah, my claustrophobia is weird. It's sort of, I can cope with being in a small space, but not for a very long period of time. And I need to know that I can get out when I want to. So the tube is a great example. I'm fine being on the tube until we're stuck in a tunnel for a long time, and then I start to get really angsty. And this was kind of similar, where obviously I could have gotten out at any time, but because it was part of the theatre, we were in this confined space for enough of a period of time that I was very glad when we got out, let's put it that way. Especially as that, you know, there are lots of creepy noises and things going on, as you would imagine with that kind of thing. Let's mention dear old Tom Felton, shall we? Because, yeah, either he hadn't been announced or we didn't know when we booked that Tom Felton was going to be playing Guy Fawkes. Now, obviously, he was not there in person. He was either a voiceover or part of the VR experience. And what was interesting was actually there, you know, again, as you can imagine, there was a moment where they did want Guy Fawkes there with you in person. So they had quite a sophisticated, or I guess clever setup where they did then get a physical actor to play him, but they had like this sort of snood or face handkerchief on, and a gizmo that was projecting Tom Felton's voice out from beneath the snood, and then the actor could sort of act with that. And, you know, it did then move around, so you did kind of get it as more of a real immersive experience rather than just, you know, a voice coming from the ether. So let's also then talk a little bit about the end of the experience. So as I said, you actually come out and there's like a whole other projector section where they just take you through what was real, what wasn't, where the characters that they had sort of made up came from. So generally they were still building on source material. So it's sort of like, it's a little bit of this person, a little bit of this person, but their storyline is sort of imagined based on, you know, they were trying to represent certain people who were involved in the plotting situation of the time. So, you know, they had a priest, for example, so they talked about the whole experience of Catholic priests being kept in priest holes and people's homes being raided and stuff like that. So there was a character created to represent a priest going through that kind of scenario. And on the other side of that, there was a character created to represent those people who had been hiding both Catholics and priests in their homes, just so that you could really kind of feel what that would have been like. So yeah, that was really interesting as well. So once you kind of went through that bit at the end, you then came into the shop, which is exactly how it should be done. Oh, actually, no, rewind. Before you get to the shop, there was actually a nice moment where you get to take your photo, which is good. Because again, I don't remember that being a thing for War of the Worlds. Because this is like, you know, you're happy enough to not be filming the experience or having your device with you so you can take pictures because you want to be immersed in it. But having nothing to take away, like, I know some of these things can be expensive when you get your photos taken and whatnot, but like having nothing to take away from an experience except for an inner head memory is difficult, because, you know, especially like from my perspective, I don't have a good long-term memory, so I can remember enjoying stuff, but I can't always remember bits and pieces that I would like to remember. So I do like to have some sort of memento, if I can, of these things. So yeah, that was nice. They actually take 2 main photos of you, and then you can choose from all these different backgrounds. So we got a deal where you could get 3 different photos. So, you know, obviously, as I say, you've got the 2 photos, but then you've got all these different backgrounds you can choose. So you'd effectively have the same base photo, and then maybe, well, you could have both base photos and then just choose different backgrounds for each. And because there were 3 of us and 3 photos, that was good. And we also then got the digital copies of those photos as well. So we've all got all the photos, but then we each got to take home a physical photo. So this is the little sleeve that it came in. And we were very pleased to see it actually has a bit of blurb in it as well. So like, here's can you see that? There's the photo. So we chose the barrel background. We thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so we've got a lovely picture of Tom Felton here, and then a bit of wording blurb there. And then this looks like key dates on the next page. Haven't actually read this properly yet. I just got home before I started this. And then this is nice because you've got then a bit here about, the creative team. I've just seen that there's a fight coordinator there, and that's the thing. There were actually some like theatrical fights and stuff, so that was pretty cool. And then over here we've obviously got the cast. So nice long blurb about Tom Felton, who wasn't there in person, but nice to see everybody else's face as well. Because when we got there was a screen which actually told you who the live cast was going to be. Really nice to be able to see who the people are, especially, as I say, some of these rooms were quite dark, so you couldn't necessarily see them very well if you were looking them right in the eye. Yeah, so that's nice. And then what have we got opposite the photo? Oh, opposite the photo we've just got a little bit about Layered Reality, who are the company behind all of this. So yeah, so we got all of that in the shop. Oh, I didn't bring my coaster through. We've got a really, actually, do you know what, let me get it. Here we go, here's the coaster. So that says, there's enough powder in those barrels to blow your head to Chelsea and your ass to Greenwich. So we really like that. We all got coasters. Yeah. So that was nice, yeah. So there are a few other things in the shop as well that you could buy. Some of them more cost appropriate than others, but again, that's to be expected. And then you go back out into sort of the main bar restaurant area. So there are like booths and tables and stuff. So that's where you start the experience, and where you also then end up. And we had already sort of pre-decided we were gonna have some, a bit more, because our thing was at 1, oops, and you have to check in like half an hour before. We didn't really want to rush having lunch before we went in, so we had a bit of a snack elsewhere before we went in, and then we're going to have like a bigger lunch around 3 or so when we came out. So yes, they had, interestingly, quite a big menu. The food was good, the chips were really nice. I had some loaded nachos. Jay had a vegan burger. Laurie had a pizza, like all good stuff all round. So yeah, that was sort of the last thing we did before we left, and then we had another final wee, obviously, and then we went off to trot around London. So yeah, all in all, I think I would give it, see, I was about to do like an out of 10 score, and I always seem to score things like 8 out of 10. Actually, no, maybe it's a 9 out of 10. Like overall, really good experience, like better than I was expecting. As I say, I think the first half before the interval was a little better than the second half, but I think perhaps that's just the way they'd split the content. So it was front weighted, so the bulk of the time was before the interval. Then you have a 20-minute interval, then there was only sort of, I guess, like 20 minutes. Yeah, it must have been about 20 minutes or so afterwards. So more just happens before you get to the interval anyway. But yeah, no, really enjoyed it. I would definitely do something like that again. We definitely enjoyed the way they positioned the history and sort of left it up to you to do further research or just take what you were presented with and make your own decisions rather than it just being like Guy Fawkes is evil, blah, blah, blah. So no, really nice, good session, well written, well acted, well performed, really immersive, beautiful sets. Can't really fault it. I would just like somebody to invent better VR headsets. Suitable for people who wear glasses and easy to get on and off when you're in that kind of experience and you haven't got time to sit and fiddle about with it. So yeah, and you know, suitable for people who can't carry like the weight of another head on their head. You know? Anyway. If you are planning to go to this experience, let us know. Or if you have already been, let us know, because we'd love to hear your thoughts and have a little bit of a comparison chat, because we love that kind of thing. So yeah, comment below, let us know what you thought. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye!